As humans, we are becoming gradually more aware of ourselves, the world around, and how we engage with it and with others. For young children, this gradual process of becoming more aware can very easily be seen in their understanding of their own body, how it looks like, how it feels, and how they can move it in different ways. Let's think back to when we were younger. What were some of the memories that you had of first becoming aware of your body? Your hands, your feet, how strong you were, how fast you could run. What did that awareness bring you as you engaged with the world around? Picture this. There are two children playing on the carpet. They're rolling around and hugging and tugging each other on their legs and arms. As you observe, you notice that there are a few moments where their play kind of takes a slight pause as they notice their hands and feet, and they're just looking at each other very, very intensely. They go back to rolling around on the floor, but this time, one of them gets a little bit more rough, and the other one's facial expression starts to change. You hear that they're slightly laughing, but at the same time, you see that they're trying to tell the other child that they don't want to play anymore. You hear some sounds of discomfort, and you see them trying to wiggle their way out from the situation. What would you do in this moment as you observe these two children and their engagement? What do you think changed, and how would you support these two children to understand what is going on? In this moment, these two children engaged in something that they were quite familiar with. They were quite comfortable with one another's bodies, being able to tumble around on the floor, hug and squeeze and pull and tug. But then, one of them started to get a little bit uncomfortable. The thing is, for whatever reason, they didn't have the language or the space to tell this other child that they needed to stop. Oftentimes, when children engage in play and engage in a way where their focus is so deeply, deeply concentrated on what they're doing, they can kind of forget that there are boundaries that they need to be mindful of. In this moment, I spoke up and said to the children, it sounds like so-and-so is feeling a little bit uncomfortable. I hear them making some sounds that makes me think that they aren't having a good time anymore. The other child, who was being a little bit more rough, said, well, we were having a lot of fun, and they really like it when we do this. In that moment, I said to the child, I recognize that you do really like to play with one another like this, but sometimes things can get a little bit too rough, and so it's good to check in and to ask again if they're okay. As children explore and understand their bodies, consent is a very important thing to teach. It's easy to pass off consent as something that needs to be taught later on in life when other things are being done. But in childhood, we are presented with a beautiful opportunity to help children understand consent in a very practical and also contextual manner. Now going back to the situation, and me posing to the child to say, well, did you ask them if they're okay? This is reminding the child that what you're doing is alright, but at the same time, there is always a need to check in to who you're engaging with, who you're playing with, to make sure that they're okay and they have consented to what is going on. For young children, situations like these happen all the time, and it isn't just when it comes to body-to-body contact. Children become so focused in play that boundaries can very easily be crossed. And so, helping them understand consent in these very small, practical, contextual, and also personal experiences helps them to understand that asking and checking in isn't something to do when boundaries are just crossed, but in general, when we engage with one another, in our relationships with one another, checking in and being mindful of the other person is helpful to build up a stronger relationship with the other person. We understand that consent is something very important to talk about, especially later down the road. But if we are able to start the conversation with children and to help them understand how consent and checking in and being mindful is helpful towards their engagements in the world, then we can support them to 1, have a voice, but 2, also value other people's voices when they engage with one another. Creating space for our voices and other people's voices to be heard then help us as we engage in this journey together to watch, think, be.